Well, look, let's see. Maybe lately I'm being a guy who gives too much trouble with the legal issue, but at the moment we're in, it's an important issue. As you know, there has been a conference of vicars, that is, of counselors, of delegation directors, and probably, I don't know if they have gone or not, the priest secretaries, both of commissions and delegations. I don't know who gathered there in Rome, but of course, a meeting like that for a week is not for, I don't know, to tell anecdotes or to pray the Trium Puerorum or similar things, but rather it's for something more serious. We already announced 2 weeks ago that this meeting would probably be to establish homogeneous action criteria for what is to come. The one that is coming may be closer than we expect, right? Or not, because it is also true that the Holy See, faced with what is before it, which is the legal path of Opus Dei, is not going to take a false step and is going to do it seriously. That is, in a different way than those of Opus Dei always do. The thing is that, if I remember correctly, last week or the previous week, I don't know if it was Maria Asuncion, who said that a numerary had told her, which in turn the directors of the consultancy had told them, if they wanted to know something, they didn't ask inside, but tried to know it from the outside. That is something scandalous, because the logical thing would be to tell it from the inside, but look where you are going to find out from the outside what is happening. In recent weeks, Opus Dei has been using various media methods to say what the prelate does not say. That is, the prelate cannot say things openly, but they are said through other means. For example, through magazines such as Omnis, which is the Old Word magazine, through information offices, through related newspapers such as El Debate, which is a newspaper of the Catholic Association of Propagandists, or through from religious magazines, perhaps somewhat different, such as Vida Nueva, or through more or less related newspapers such as ABC, o a través de periódicos más o menos afines como el ABC. Entonces, bueno, ahí digamos que hay There are people who have said things. There are two interventions that I mentioned last week, which are that of Juan Ignacio Arrieta, who is the secretary of the dicastery for the interpretation of legislative texts of the Vatican, which is a member of Opus Dei. Better said, he is no longer so because he is a bishop, and therefore he is no longer under the jurisdiction of the prelate by virtue of being a bishop, but rather depends directly on the Pope. Continues to belong to the priestly society of the Holy Cross, which is as if we were saying Opus Dei for priests who are not incarnated in Opus Dei. Then Juan Ignacio Arrieta wrote an article a few months ago where he emphasized that a public clerical association is not the same as an association of clerics. Nor am I going to get into talking about one or the other now. Then, Jack Valero, who I did mention, came to say that Opus Dei is lay people, priests, men, women, and he asked himself, is it so difficult for there to be something of that in the church? We already discussed it. ¿Es tan difícil que en la iglesia haya algo de eso? Bueno, o sea, ya lo comentamos, ¿no? Then another professor, Viana, from the University of Navarra, made an article where it was clearly seen that Opus Dei is no longer a group with sectarian tendencies, but rather a group with schismatic tendencies.
Un grupo con tendencias sectarias, sino un grupo con tendencias cismáticas.
But I've had two more sources.
Fuentes más.
One of them is from Isabel Sanchez Leon, who is the Central Secretary of Opus Dei, who 3 weeks ago said that when the Pope has any doubt about what personal prelatures are or should be, he calls Ocaries to consult him. Of course, that seems so surreal to me that I haven't even spread it, but it's something that Isabelita dedicated herself to saying to her followers.
Pero es algo que Isabelita pues se dedicó a decirlo por ahí a sus seguidoras, ¿no?
But the really big thing is what came to me this week, and I'm going to read it to you. This is from the Conference of Vicars. I imagine that when the vicars return to their town, to their land, they will have discussed something with their closest collaborators, and someone has talked too much. It could be the vicar or some collaborator or someone. The fact is that it has reached me. Here it is. So I'm going to read it to you, and we'll comment briefly, he says. There are things, that is, this is from a meditation that the prelate gave to the vicars, a meditation that the prelate gave to the vicars on the Conference of Vicars. This is not textual. I want to say that perhaps the words are not verbatim, because these are notes taken by one of the vicars, who is the one who has gone off the rails, and who in turn will have told it to another, who in turn has talked too much and has ended up in my hands. It says there are things that the Father talks about with the Pope or with the Monsignor Ghirlanda, and that cannot be transmitted to the member of Opus Dei, because neither the Pope nor Ghirland have the same idea of prelature. Next Monday, 25, the documents will be presented to the dicastery of the clergy. The Father has told the vicars, rest assured, that I am taking great care of the work. There is a logical adaptation after the second motu proprio of August 8, and it is this. We will defend what is essential to the death. A personal prelature in which there are only priests creating an association of faithful united to the prelature would not correspond to what we are. This is not going to happen, and this is not going to happen appears in capital letters. I continue. Anything will be done so that the essence is not broken, but that is not going to happen. The most important thing is life. The law is clothing that can protect, attend to what I'm going to say, to what the prelate said. Law is clothing that can protect, preserve, corrupt, and even destroy. I'm going to repeat this last bit. The most important thing is life. Law is clothing which can protect, preserve, corrupt, and even destroy.
Proteger, conservar, corromper y hasta destruir.
I repeat that the prelate may not have said exactly these words, because after all, these are notes from one of the vicars who took note.
Al fin y al cabo, esto son notas que de uno de los vicarios que tomó nota.
Maybe they are not exactly these words, but hey, but these are the notes that this vicar took. If the above were to happen, that is, If a personal prelature were to be created in which there were no lay people, we would be so by law, but not in fact.
Lo seríamos de derecho, pero no de hecho.
And continue. We were pious union. We were a secular institute. We are prelature. And the work will continue to be what God transmitted to our Father. If necessary, whatever, we will be it in law, but we will not be it in fact. Well, let's see. I don't know how you feel about what I read to you, but this is clearly a call to disobedience. This is a call to rebellion. This is a call on the part of the prelate to rebellion, to disobedience to the Pope. To say I don't give a damn about the law, I'm going to continue doing whatever I want. So what has come to me reminded me of a gathering of the founder of Opus Dei that appears in one of those videos. By the way, I'm going to make a point. I have news that there is a number, a former numeraire, that has lots of complete gatherings of San Jose Maria by Álvaro del Portillo and Javier Echevarria. That is an arsenal, because currently I don't know if you know that when, in some gathering of numeraries or numeraries, it is said that we are going to watch a video of our Father, that is not a what they show is not an entire gathering, it is a rehash, because in the interventions of San Jose Maria by Álvaro del Portillo and Javier Echevarria, there are lots of things that today can no longer be said even to the people inside. So I remember that I saw many times when I was a member a gathering of the founder of Opus Dei, which seemed to me to be a gathering that only the people of Opus Dei could see. It was a video that was not shown to outsiders. And in that video, at a certain moment, St. Joseph Mary, in a fit of irascibility, says, Opus Dei is not a secular institute.
Opus Dei no es un instituto secular.
At that time, legally, Opus Dei was a secular institute. At that time, Opus Dei was a secular institute. Of course, saying that for me, specifically, when I watched that video, it didn't cause me it didn't shock me at all because, well, let's say you were in favor. The audience in front of San Jose Maria was a totally dedicated audience in favor, uncritical and well. And also there was a messianic sense of the founder of Opus Dei, and therefore for the founder of Opus Dei to say openly in public and loudly that Opus Dei is not a secular institute, that was enough for Paul VI at that moment would have suspended Divinis, or would have dissolved Opus Dei, because that was in every rule a call to rebellion. In other words, what Ocaris is doing now in front of the vicars is exactly the same. That is, we will be what we are by law, but it doesn't matter to us, because by law they will say what they want, but in fact we will always follow what we understand we want to be. Well, I mean, all this in some way corroborates something that I already noticed last week, and that we discussed in a round table Jacinto Choza and I that has appeared published in Agoracoloquios. That is, Ocares will surely not want to go down in history as the one who slapped Joseph Maria on the face.
o Cáriz no va a querer pasar a la historia como el que le cruzó la cara a San José María. Y
I imagine you would prefer